I use this same audition strategy for every one of my students, regardless of their age or their level of experience, and it improves their auditions every single time. Trouble is, many parents and kids don't really know what it is that directors are looking for, so they don't know to add this strategy to their auditions, which is why they don't get cast. In this video, you're going to learn why most kids don't get cast even though they're talented, what directors are actually looking for in that audition room, and I'm going to show you my simple 3-step audition strategy that's going to improve your audition right away. So if your child has been auditioning and not getting cast, or maybe you just want to walk in extra prepared, this is what you're going to want to focus in on. So stick around, you're not going to want to miss this. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Jessica, the Stagecraft Nerd. I've directed youth theater for the last 10 years, and now I break down shows and audition material from the perspective of a director so that parents and students can walk into a production feeling confident and prepared. I also teach theater skills online completely for free for anyone who is new to theater or just wanting to level up their skills. And if you're new to theater, or maybe you're just wanting to strengthen up your skills, consider liking and following this channel. I provide free acting lessons, including audition preparation, and show breakdowns every week so that you can keep improving your skills from home. So what I see most often at auditions is a new performer walks in and they're unsure of what is expected of them and they don't get cast. And then parents walk away thinking, well, they should have been cast anyway. That way they could grow into their character. Or they should have gotten cast so that they could learn how to do theater during rehearsals. But that's just not how it works. I've also seen students who practice a lot at home and parents are really confident about their audition. And then when they go to the audition, parents think, oh, they were just nervous. They were really good at home. You should give them a shot anyway. And the thing is, unless those nerves are completely debilitating and prevent them from speaking or singing at all, nerves are not usually the reason why a student isn't cast. I have cast many nervous teenagers before. It's not the nerves. You see, directors are actually looking for one very important factor during an audition. Now, the real problem is that when students come into an audition, let's face it, they're probably in a studio or they're probably in a classroom, and their auditions are small, right? So we're talking about small voice, we're talking about small movement, small expression, and that's the problem. You're not auditioning for a small room, you're auditioning for a very large performance venue. Sometimes those venues hold anywhere between 100 to 200, sometimes maybe even 300 audience members in that house. So all auditions need to be big enough to show us that you have the capability of expressing yourself to the very back row of that theater. So if a new performer walks into one of my auditions and their energy reads really small, I already know that it's not going to translate into a venue that holds 100, 200, maybe even 300 people in that audience. It's just not going to. And I know that I can't cast them in the lead role because they're not going to be able to command the attention of the room. And then I would debate whether I can actually cast them in the ensemble, because ensembles do often have to be bigger than life. Their expressions have to be bigger. Their singing has to be big. Their movement has to be big. So if the energy is small, they're not going to read on stage. All right, a little anecdote here, so please indulge me. Several years ago, I was directing Addams Family, and my Gomez Addams, who was an 8th grader, he was big, he was a football player, he was tall, he had a low voice. He was everything you could imagine a Gomez to be like. He had to leave our show mid-production, and I had to cast a new Gomez right away. So I held these supplementary auditions for this part, and in walks in this young man who was in 6th grade, and he was feet shorter than my original Gomez, and he was younger, he was smaller, he did not look the part at all compared to my previous 8th grade Gomez, and I was a little unsure about what was going to happen, but I let him have the floor. And when he walked in and got started, I tell you, my jaw was on the floor. He had a big voice, he made big physical choices. He had clear character, he was confident, and he made these bold decisions. And he didn't look like he was the obvious choice, but he completely owned the room, I tell you. I cast him, and he was my favorite part of that entire show. And to see a young little 6th grade squeaky boy playing opposite of a very tall 8th grade girl to play Morticia was delightful. All of this to say is that you don't have to preconceive what you might look like for a part, but when you walk into an audition room, if you make strong, bold choices and you bring in the energy, who knows where you're going to end up. So, quick question. As you're thinking about all of this, I really am curious to know your thoughts. Do you think that your child currently tends to play small in an audition room, or do you think they come in with a really strong energy? Just let me know in the comments. I'm just really curious to see where you're at in this process. All right, so the question now becomes, how do we fix the audition? Well, luckily, I've come up with a 3-box system that I teach my students. It's a very simple system that works at every level, whether you are a beginner or whether you're just looking to advance your audition technique. One of the first areas that students struggle with when they're auditioning is this concept of movement. Especially if they are brand new to theater, they tend to think that they have to stand really still and they don't know where to move. And so they come across very stiff. So I came up with box number 1. So I want your student to create an imaginary square box around their feet. It doesn't have to be very big at all. And in that box, they need to chart a path of 3 to 4 destinations within that square. It could be in any pattern they want, but they just have to make a little path. Then during their audition song or their audition monologue, they should travel to each one of those spaces during that time. Now, these movements do have to look organic, right? So we don't just want to step over here and step over there for the purpose of movement. It needs to be purposeful and it needs to look organic. Otherwise, we're going to look like little chess pieces moving from here to here, and that just looks fake. We want to move from one moment to the next organically and with purpose. So that helps you with movement. The second area where students struggle a lot during their auditions is focus. They don't know where to look. Sometimes they ask, do I look at the director? No, don't look at the director. Do I look above? Do I look to the side? Do I look down here? Where do I look? That can be very stressful for a new performer, and it can internalize that stress and it can come out in their performance. So I introduce box number 2, focus. The next box that I want your student to think about is actually the audition room itself. And I want them to envision the back wall of the audition room behind the directors, right? So it is a square wall, and I want them to envision all 4 of the corners of that wall. But I also want them to envision the midline in between those 4 corners. And they need to choose one of those midlines, whether it's their left or their right, and make that their imaginary scene partner. So if I'm looking at the back wall and I'm choosing my midline at the left, I'm going to deliver my dialogue and I'm going to sing my song to that particular spot. And should I need to look away, and you should look away at some point, you don't want to be locked in the entire time. That looks a little creepy. You're going to deliver your line to that spot, and then you're going to organically and naturally look away. But you're going to choose one of those 4 corners to look away to. You can look up, you can look down, you can look back up again, and then back to your partner. But the point is that you have specific spots that your eyes need to naturally go to. So the 4 corners are where you look away, and the midline is where you deliver your dialogue. Only look away if it feels organic. And the final area where students struggle the most within auditions is energy. Now, if you remember at the beginning of this video, I talked to you about coming into a small room having small energy, small eye energy, small face energy, small body energy, small vocal energy. And that tends to be the reason why performers don't get cast in a role, because they can't translate their energy out into a very large venue. So I introduced to you box number 3, energy. In this case, I want your student to imagine that they have a box that has 3 different levels. Level 1 energy, level 2 energy, and level 3 energy. Now, I want your student to choose one of those levels to start their audition with. Usually it's around level 1, and then they need to transition to the next level of energy and transition to the 3rd level of energy at some point throughout their audition. They should end up at a different level than where they got started. They don't have to. That's not a rule of thumb. They can always go back to the original. That's okay. But the point here is to fluctuate the energy so that we have some kind of arc during the audition. Songs naturally have that arc. Many songs start here, then they crescendo up here, and then maybe they'll come back over here. So we want to build some kind of excitement during that audition. I want to see change during an audition. I want to see low energy, medium, and high energy. Most kids, unfortunately, just stay in one energy the entire time. Stronger performers know how to start in one level and build to the other and then go back again. This is what creates range, and it creates drama. It creates a performance that's interesting to watch, and honestly, that's what gets you cast. So remember, if your child isn't getting cast, it's usually not a talent issue. It might just be that they're performing very small. There's not enough movement, there's not enough focus, and there's certainly not enough energy shift. But fortunately, that is a thing that you can fix. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you have any further questions about auditions or about the 3-box strategy, please leave me your question or your comment below. I will get back to you right away. And if you found any of this information here valuable or helpful, please like, subscribe, and share with anybody else that you think might find this information valuable as well. This is going to help me bring more content like this to performers just like you. Thanks, and stay nerdy, my friends.